Let's acknowledge the good friends of the Loft Party Podcast. The Majestic Restaurant and Pendergast Club, 931 Broadway in Kansas City, Missouri. The J. Rieger Kansas City Distillery. Oh, so good. Now onto our regularly scheduled program.
It's not getting it.
I do want to, I don't know what you have, I don't know if we were talking about getting sick and stuff like that. Like that too. One thing I want to bring up, and I don't know how you want to bring it into play, is we've had, in the pop cultural world, we've had some athletes, we have entertainers that have, especially watching the Emmys and different things, they have a lot of different opinions. And a lot of them been taking a stance against, you know, cop on black violence. But what I haven't heard, and one of the things that bothers my heart a little bit, is I haven't heard the same people go against the hood and say, snitches get stitches, gotta end.
Yeah. You know, it's funny.
And I didn't really want to bring that into a discussion because this is something I don't understand.
You might check yours.
You know what I mean, Mario?
Yeah.
It's something I don't understand. Are they afraid to lose their cred with the hard part of the hood? But shouldn't they be trying to take care of the good part of the hood and the good people in the hood?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. Because to tell you the
I've
truth,
heard nothing on this, and all they're doing is banging on the blues.
Yeah.
When they need to be banging on some of the blacks.
Yeah, it's like I heard one person actually go there, and I was trying to remember who that was, because I remember it struck me that this was the first time I heard somebody say, you know, black on black crime is just as bad.
Talked about it for a long time.
Yeah. Like we've been talking
Somebody
about it.
in the media
It's getting worse right now because the police, and quite frankly, have backed off. If you're a cop, you going to engage too much? Nah. If somebody's there with the cell phone and got you wrong, you done.
And
I did see this morning, we saw this morning that all the Chicago PD will have body cameras.
by 18.
18.
They just don't own the parking meters, so that's good. I don't know how the hell they're going to afford it.
And I'm not saying
I think that's why it's in 2018.
I'm not saying that the police don't have issues.
$8 million.
There was an article in the Kansas City Star Sunday. Basically, the child division over here at KCMO, they're horrible.
Yeah.
They're horrible.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I mean, I think
sins against children.
There are problems. There's so many problems. Some of them are so kind of deep rooted and systemic, but we're not talking about all the problems. We're talking about, you know, actually.
It's the media.
Yeah, I remember we were looking at Bill Maher the other day, and he said the thing that bothers him about liberals, and he would most likely identify as a liberal, but the thing that bothers him about liberals,
He's not afraid to say something.
which is why I actually do like him. He's not afraid to say something. But he was saying most liberals, like they're so concerned about this little spot of shit over here, when there's a pile of shit over here. It's like you can't do selective cleanup. It's either it's bad or it can wait, and this one little spot of crap probably can wait because you got a much bigger thing right over on the other side of the room.
There's a lot of flies on that one.
And there's a lot of flies on that one. And I think, yes, I do think, and look, I grew up.
You got different perspectives.
First of all, let me jump right in and start, because I think from the beginning this actually was good, and this has all been on tape. So, welcome everybody out there in podcast land to the Good Times with Good People Company presents the Law Party Podcast, where it is always about good times, good people, and good talk. Please subscribe to the Loft Party Podcast on YouTube, Facebook, and SoundCloud. And be sure to tell a friend you've received your invitation, and welcome to the party. I am your host and panel moderator, Rio, and I will introduce today's panel in just a second. First, let me apologize to you out there in podcast land. I am just getting over pneumonia, so my voice is rough, to say the least. But that I did not want that to stop me for one more week.
The anonymous female said it was sexy.
Well, I'm just saying.
Get a little Barry White.
Everybody likes Barry White. Everybody likes Barry White. That's all I'm saying. So, really quick, Dave Elliott on a panel, once again, of course, Chris O'Connor and the anonymous female. And we're going to jump right in. Actually, the funny thing is, without Big Dave even seeing the show agenda, he ticked into something that I was going to talk about toward the end. And I pretty much said I was talking about Colin Kaepernick, but I think this entire conversation is relevant because I was saying Colin Kaepernick will be judged by history because some of the people that we consider to be some of the greatest Americans of all time took very similar stances and were not loved during their time for those stances, such as Jackie Robinson and Muhammad Ali. I don't think there's three people out there that would disagree that Jackie Robinson and Ali are American heroes in a lot of ways, but at the time their stances on politics were really controversial.
What about Malcolm X?
At the time,
who still is somewhat controversial, but the man said a lot of things that were right and true.
Exactly. I mean, to tell you the truth, coming toward the end of his life, even Dr. King was starting to focus less on. He hadn't gotten away from it completely, but he was focusing less on nonviolence and was really starting to talk about there needs to be a movement of poor people because he was seeing the problem from a larger vantage point, and that was right around the time when he was assassinated, and so I think sometimes things that are quite unpopular in the moment, history will judge them as being on the right side of history. And so my premise was, as much division and derision as we've had over Colin Kaepernick taking a knee during the national anthem, we're starting to see a lot more athletes join in. We're starting to see it across sports.
Was it Bill Maher that we saw? Was it Bill Maher or was it somebody on This Week with George Stephanopoulos where they were talking about you may not agree, maybe it was Kerry Washington, you may not agree with what he's doing, but our Constitution and what we fought for to have that is what gives him the right. It was Bill Maher.
Yeah, it was Kerry Washington that she was on Bill Maher.
But nobody's
No,
ever
it was
denied
that
the
white
fact that he had the
Republican
right.
guy.
But just having a right doesn't come with consequences.
No, I agree with that.
Yeah,
And
you
so I
have to
think
be
people-
okay.
People misunderstand this all the time.
Well,
your ability and right to do something does not mean that you get to just do whatever you
but
want.
I think
with no
people are
consequences
saying
at
that it's not right. Well, it's not
They're
right
saying
for
it's
you.
not right.
It's not right for you. It's perfectly right for him. You don't have to agree with it, but it's his right to do that.
Yeah, I think that you're mixing
now
up the word right and right. I think what a lot of people are saying is it is morally just incomprehensible that he would take this stance in the way that he's doing it. And I haven't heard anybody say he doesn't have a constitutional a right
I
to
have.
go do it.
I have.
Well, then let's be just morons. That's
No.
just
That's
just
Yeah, no, they.
I mean,
he-
everybody I know has acknowledged his constitutional ability to do that without being thrown in jail, which is extremely rare in this world,
Yeah.
especially if you travel around. And I think when people use right, especially in this conversation, what they're saying is he's going about it the wrong way, even if he believes in the cause, and it's
Well, which the first
ridiculous
time we
in this
brought
matter.
this subject up, I said I wasn't 100% sure if I thought the way he was protesting was correct, but I definitely agree with why he's protesting. But the way, and I'm still very conflicted in the way, not in the why.
Well,
Like, I definitely understand the why, but
I
the
agree with
way,
that.
I'm still,
but
yeah,
the main problem I have is that this is sport.
yeah,
You are a paid employee of the San Francisco 49ers. You are a representative of the National Football League. If you want to have your protest or you want to speak out for something, you have a platform. The national media, you go out after the game and you go talk to the media after the game. They're going to give you a platform if you have something to say like that. I understand that this is protesting.
I think a lot of people.
But this is still business. I would not approve of one of my employees picketing outside one of my houses because he felt there was an injustice because this person is building a $10 million house and he can only afford a $20,000 house. That employee is going to get fired.
Well,
Well,
you
you
absolutely
have- but
cannot
he
do it
had-
in this case. There is no
He
rule
may
that-
have the right to do so,
They do not.
but
No,
I
they
also
don't.
have
It
the
is
right
not,
to
it's not
terminate.
against the NFL rules to do that. In fact, the NFL has repeatedly said we would prefer that you stand and acknowledge the anthem, but you do have no obligation to stand and acknowledge it. So they've been very clear on their stance, and I think they're right on it. And I also think the other thing that people are mistaking all the time, and why this thing's getting blown completely out of proportion, is because they hear Black Lives Matter as if Colin Kaepernick is saying only Black Lives Matter and that is it. And that's not the case. What he's saying is drawing attention to a social injustice that is very real and is prevalent. And I don't think he's saying no other lives matter except for that. I think he's just saying, listen, this is a real problem. So,
Well, and we went back, we've talked about it on this podcast. It's not, the Black Lives Matter movement isn't only Black Lives Matter, it's Black Lives Matter too. It's an implied too. And I think people don't understand that. People being every other, race out there. But, I think when you look at it that way, if you really believe in equal rights for people, you would understand what they're saying.
But this is where I have the
And
problem, because you're assuming that the Black Lives Matter movement should be focusing on what I would consider, honestly, if you look at the homicides in America, it is not the vast majority of white people running around killing black people. That's not what's going on. Most black people are killed by black people, and so if Black Lives Matter, they should matter universally. And in my mind, it should start in your neighborhoods, in your streets, in your communities. And I would string up a cop in a second for shooting a black person illegally. That is completely unconscionable, and that's wrong. That is the vast majority of the crime that's out there. And it's like when people, listen, whether you're pro-choice or pro-life, it doesn't really matter to me. But when you argue that, abortion and rape and all that case, that's less than 1% of the abortions in the world. You're making the most felonious argument at that point, and it's a nonsense argument. Nobody makes a rule on the 1%. So I wish truly the black community would unite in going, hey, let's work together to not just fight white on black crime, which gets a lot of attention. Why don't we start really fighting black on black crime and get our neighborhoods? I can honestly tell you, yes, I live in pretty much an all-white neighborhood, and if the kind of shit that was going on there were like murders and stuff, that would become a problem real fast. I mean, I work really hard to clean that neighborhood.
Well, it always makes me think about movie Boys in the Hood, where it's like at the end, Ice Cube's character is, saying either they they don't know, they don't show, or they don't care what's going on in the hood. And I think that is a lot of people's attitude or feeling, maybe that's a better word, about, because I think you're right. I think from a media standpoint, you know, young black male gets shot by a cop, national news, you know.
10 of them get killed in a night.
No, 23 in a night.
Yeah. And it's just,
It's a number.
It's just
10
a
people got
number.
killed.
Right, and it's just a number. Nobody's saying, remember these names. Nobody's, you know, holding up those pictures. They're not even pictures on the news. And I think that's where...
It's not even making national news.
Yeah.
It's only making news in Chicago.
Yeah.
Or if you happen to
Yes.
hear,
Yeah.
But they want to keep that suppressed because that's not what the media wants you to be digging on right now. And this goes back to where I started off all this, is that there's a legitimate movement with BLM. I don't have a problem with their legitimate movement against police violence and things like this, against being pulled over for driving while black. All these things are understandable to me, okay? But they have missed the major point, is that, okay, you care so much for this, you care so much for your community, then start doing something about it. Because I really have an issue with this. You need to be getting your rap stars, you need to be getting your singing stars. I mean, Beyonce and Jay-Z and Drake and who's from Canada, so I can't really throw him in there. But, you know, what if somebody like Kanye come out and said, look, snitches got stitches, it's BS.
Yeah.
well, and I think that is a sad thing, and kind of going back to your original point of he's being paid by the NFL with Kaepernick, it's the fact that not as many people are going to be watching the after the game interviews. They're going to see him during the game doing something specific. And it kind of goes back to, I can't remember what athlete it was. It might have been Jordan, when he said more athletes need to be standing up and using their voice and their platform. And then it started rolling.
Because really in the 60s,
But
a lot of athletes, you know.
But the thing is, Kanye is from Chicago.
Yeah.
It is very sad to me that you don't hear him speaking out. And maybe I just don't see it.
Because those
You would know better than I do.
I
but
mean,
do
he
you
definitely,
ever
he
see
mentions
him?
stuff, he does mention things
Yeah, from Bel
in
Air.
his songs.
But I'm talking
But-
about
From his
beyond
name,
just
but
songs.
from
Yeah.
Calabasas, exactly.
I'm saying they
But
should
I'm
have a
talking
national-
about beyond the song, because not everybody listens to Kanye.
No, I get that. It's like, I think the problem, you know, speaking about Kanye, you know, I am of the Kanye. I am in the Kanye is a genius ilk.
So am I. We agree on
But
that.
my
I love Kanye.
one problem that I have with Kanye, I don't disagree with the things that he rants about, but there are more important things to be ranting about. Like, I think you're right. Everything that you're ranting about is all true. Like, when I go back and I listen to some of the rants and I look at them on YouTube, and I'm like, you know what, he's actually telling a lot of truth. The problem is that, you know, when you're from a city with 500 murders a year,
No.
you should be
more,
talking about
because
that.
they've already passed 500.
Yeah, this is
They're hitting 800.
This is a horrible year this year.
Yep.
Because normally we cap out around 5, just around 5. We're
Mm-hmm. That's
at
how many-
5.
yeah,
We're
they-
past 5 now.
Yeah.
That's a war zone.
Yeah, that's a war zone.
That's
Exactly.
a war zone.
And somebody
Nobody is
But-
fighting
with
against
that
the war.
level of
Somebody
a
hit.
platform.
Somebody else.
Well, and it's got to, and I do agree that if you're a singer or an athlete or if you have any type of celebrity pulpit from a city like Chicago, you should be using some of that to talk about the conditions.
It should be a
But
national.
even beyond
wait a
that,
second,
why are none of the, I mean, you don't hear anything from the government in Chicago. You don't hear anything about, I mean, and it's not
Oh, I
just
think
Chicago.
They want to cover it up. They don't want to bring
About
it to
it.
the national
Rahm
spotlight.
Emanuel has been very,
President
very.
Obama hadn't even talked about it.
He talks about it quite a
Be real.
bit, and he's been. So is Rahm Emanuel. They've been very vocal. I live in Chicago quite a bit of the time,
Yes, I know you do.
and they talk about it very,
Yeah.
very.
But do
very
you
much.
hear
It's
about
not
it outside of
public.
Chicago?
Well, no.
It doesn't hit national news the way that I think that it should.
Well,
No,
that's what I
because you're-
mean.
it's-
But I'm also from Chicago, so I think
People are
and
so
have thought for
concerned
some
about the
time.
next dumb thing that Trump or Hillary or whoever's gonna do that, to me, yeah, it's important to think about who our next president's going to be, but I'm just as concerned about all these kids or people dying in the streets, literally dying in the streets.
I'm actually a lot more concerned about that than I am anything else, because that's real life. That's
Well, and
that's
do
not
you
the
think
reality
for a
show that
minute-
our presidential election
I
is.
Do
will
you
tell
think
what,
for a
as
minute
television
that
viewer,
can't
gets
spread
zero
out?
Ratings. That gets 0 ratings. The way to go about it is exactly the way Colin Kaepernick did, which is I think keep drawing national attention to it,
Well-
keep the conversation rolling as best you can.
So that goes back to what we
So
were saying
now
at the
I'm
beginning.
like-
Why do you think be as a paid person in a particular,
But he's former-
sport? You use what you have the
I
ability to
think
use.
I think you're
But
when you
barking-
have the
but
ability
barking
to use
up the
it.
wrong tree, because in my mind,
I'm not barking up a tree though. I'm
yeah.
agreeing with
what
what
I'm
you're
saying
saying.
is that it does not start with politicians and sports figures and things like that making a difference. I mean, I a 15-year-old kid, I don't give a shit what they were saying. I don't care about their lyrics. I don't care about any of that. That's nonsense. What at some point, it starts in a neighborhood, and neighborhood by neighborhood, and in your own place, you go, dude, I don't want to live like this. This sucks. This
Yeah.
sucks bad. Why don't we at least as a block come together and let's just work on our block, and then maybe the next block over we'll start working together too, and that would be cool. And now you have a neighborhood community, which is kind of interesting. And literally, honestly, you know what a lot of happens in at least the white
Well,
neighborhoods
that's
I
how
lived in?
you get
You police
movements.
your own neighborhood. I
But
don't
tell me
trust
this.
the cops any more than you do. I just police my own neighborhood.
Tell me this, when
That's
it's
true.
Colin Kaepernick, be better off to form a coalition of people in pop culture, sports, wherever, and form a coalition and say, we are out here doing advertisement. You got plenty of money to pay for an advertisement, don't you? We're out here to speak against this. But we're also out here to speak against what's going on in our hoods with the drug dealing and nobody's talking about and all the killing, and people won't turn people in. You want to turn your neighborhood around, this is how you get it done. And we're here to support you because that's who they look up to. But now what I may not understand, does that ruin, are they worried about their cred on the street? Because, oh, now you're speaking out against the street, I ain't gonna buy your music. Speaking out against the street, I ain't gonna watch your football game, I ain't gonna watch your baseball game, I ain't gonna watch your basketball game.
I don't know.
That, to me, is 10 times more powerful, 100 times more powerful than taking a knee on the field. And I'm sorry, Colin Kaepernick does not have the street cred the way he was raised. That some of these guys that have come out of the hood and become musicians or rappers or sports players, and they come out of it. And sometimes they just had a mama to raise them. And their mama standing up there in the stand, Melvin Gordon. Did you see Melvin Gordon's mama the other day?
Yeah.
Did you have to catch that? She's up there with that jersey on. She wouldn't even put his
Yeah,
number on.
that's
He played so
hilarious.
bad last year. Mama got Melvin. Melvin's going to be fine because Mama's got Melvin. You know? Melvin would be a great guy to come out and say, hey, Mama took care of me. You guys are not doing this right. This is what you need to do.
And this
That's my point. But they formed a greater coalition, we are the world type thing. How amazing would that be, Mario?
And
That's my point.
well, I do see your point, and I'm not sure if it makes as powerful a statement if that same coalition does what Colin's already doing now. I don't know if it makes more of a statement if he does get a coalition.
Well, what's the difference?
And they all take knees on Sunday.
That's a nothing. I mean, raising awareness is nice. Action is a little nicer.
Yeah.
But I would like
Well,
to
I
see-
mean, I ultimately agree with what you said. I think you do have to go,
Take
go
it down to a
block by
grassroots
block.
level. You have to take it
I
to a
don't mean go
grassroots
take a
level.
knee, I mean,
I haven't
go
heard that term in a
national
long
with
time.
your media.
No, I
Get billboards up. Get commercials.
Yeah, no,
Public
I
service
know.
commercials.
Yeah, no.
That's what I mean. Give up on the knee. You want to get real, get real.
I still,
Take your money and do something with it. All these people have a lot of money. Take your money and do something.
I'd rather see them spend money on lawnmowers, on paint for houses, on arresting slumlords, and enforcing the laws that are there.
Yeah, 'cause
and
there's a
making the neighborhoods
whole
nice,
lot of
safe,
slumlords.
and right. Hey, why don't the street lights work on the street for once? That'd be nice. You know, I mean, all that stuff would go so
I would
much
back
further.
that too. I would
Yeah,
think
it'd be
that was a
great.
good thing. I mean, these are things that I don't live it. I don't know it. The only thing I can say is I was there pretty damn close to it one time in my life. So I got a little bit of understanding
Southside's
of
a
it, but
tough
I
place
didn't
to be.
grow up in it.
Southside is a tough place to be.
I mean, look, I grew up on the South Side, and yeah, it was tough, but I don't regret one day growing up on the South Side. You know, a lot of the things.
But was it as bad when you were growing up as it is now?
Oh man, it was ridiculously bad. It was. I remember standing at the bus stop.
But is it as bad
As it is
as
now.
it is now?
Yeah, it was.
Percentage-wise,
Yeah,
it
because when I was growing up, the gang truce wasn't in place.
Right.
So this is all.
You actually had Mexican drug lords who were funneling the money for the drugs.
Yeah,
and
this
the drugs
is
themselves
all-
into Chicago.
yeah, like-
and they were at war, so that meant their gangs
Yeah,
were
we're
at
at
war with each
war,
other.
and yeah, like this is all like petty drug turf stuff now. Like, so you take like hardcore drug turf.
But do you really think
And-
it's all drug related?
Yes.
Well, and
Both of us.
if it wasn't, it wouldn't be in basically two pockets of the city. You know, like
agree.
you've got one section of the South Side and one section of the West Side that have turned into Beirut and Fallujah, and the rest of the city is humming along just fine.
Sure.
But those
West
pockets
Loop,
are
bro.
so bad.
West Loop's pretty sweet.
Hey man, gotta like the West
I'm
Loop.
liking it down there.
Gotta
I
like the West
I
Loop.
kinda like how you put that.
That's
too.
where your building is. You know, you gotta like the West Loop. Okay, so we have
Someday.
spent way more time on that
Great
particular
conversation,
subject.
though. Great
Oh yeah,
conversation.
absolutely. I don't know if we have solved anything in this conversation, but everybody out there listening, if you get an opportunity, leave a comment, let us know what you think the solution is, because at the end of the day, I don't know if there's one right way to do any of
Oh,
this,
it's too multi-layered.
but we've got to start doing, and that's really what we got to start doing something.
I think honestly, it's been 150 years of doing things. We're just, again, you recognize when it happens.
Yeah.
Nobody stopped doing anything. It's
Yeah.
just, again, they're calling attention to it again, and I think it's a good thing to do.
Yeah.
Every generation calls attention to it, and it's the progress that's been made historically should not be discounted.
Oh, absolutely.
Now there's a lot more progress to be made.
Yeah, absolutely. So, which takes me back to the top of my list. And I do think we mentioned on the last podcast, but I did want to do a couple of rest in peace. One, Gene Wilder.
Oh.
I think we did, but I wasn't 100% sure if we mentioned that on the last podcast. Passed away at 83.
Man, can make you laugh till you pee.
And one person that I knew we hadn't mentioned, because he passed away over my pneumonia hiatus. Jerry Heller of I used to manage NWA Fame. Passed away at 75.
Was he the guy on?
That was
Straight
basically
Outta Compton?
basically Easy's partner in Ruthless Records.
So who was Jerry overall? Explain to me who Jerry was.
Okay, so Jerry used to do several different jobs in the record business, and Eazy-E was pressing his own record.
Well, all of
And
them.
he ran a pressing facility at the time, and so it was Eazy's first real record, and he was just like, man, look, you know, I got a few connections, and I've worked with some big people, and I think what you're doing is amazing. You know.
Is he a white or black guy?
He's a white
White
guy.
guy.
Yeah,
Okay,
and
well,
he said, let me.
Name like Jerry Heller, he's
Yeah,
probably white.
he said, let me help you. You know, and ultimately he did help NWA become what they became, but at the same time, Jerry Heller kept his hand in the cookie jar.
He's the Ron Perlman of rap.
He was definitely the Ron Perlman of
guy.
rap. And he definitely kept his hand in the cookie jar, and got caught and called out, and eventually fired by Eazy-E.
But it also what made NWA split up.
Exactly. Ice Cube noticed it first, and then he left, and the group started feuding, and eventually Dr. Dre noticed it, and he left, and thus the demise of NWA. But of course, we still have Ice Cube and Dr. Dre.
Dude, there's one thing those two dudes understand is accounting.
Yes.
They will dig in the money and
They
figure it
dug.
out real
Yeah,
fast.
they definitely understood the money is off somewhere. In fact, Ice Cube noticed right away. He was like,
Well,
wait a minute, I wrote everything.
Well, and he.
And I didn't get paid.
Look how brilliant he is. That dude's got a brilliant mind.
Love those guys. Dr. Dre's the first billionaire in hip
Oh,
hop.
first billionaire in hip hop. Yeah, I mean,
they know
so
what they're doing.
Yeah.
You're not gonna pull an accounting scam on those two dudes.
Not those two
Not for
dudes.
very long.
yeah, not for very long. I think honestly,
Well,
Easy-E,
it started
right?
it started it with them not being made partner, and they kept saying, "We're going to make you a partner, going to make you a partner," and then he looked deeper and deeper, and it
he
was
was
like,
like, wait a minute, I'm not even getting paid for what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So I tell you what, just pay me, and we'll call it even. He's like, well, it's some accounting. He says, well, I'm out.
I got
And he said, because I'm not stupid. And so, like I said, so Ice Cube left, and of course they were paying Dr. Dre better because he made all of the music, and then when he realized that he wasn't getting paid correctly, he left because once again you're not gonna make very many accounting mistakes with.
The music industry's kind of dry. I mean, the percentages are already there.
Yeah.
So everybody knows. It's been established for years and years and years.
Mhm.
They're very divided between the record company, the performers, and the publishers.
Yep.
That's it. And then the managers get a fee based on that.
Very
It is
exactly.
the easiest business in the world to keep track of your money in.
If you want to keep track of it,
Right.
it is not difficult. Yeah, because like you say, the numbers are already there, and the only thing you can do is negotiate higher numbers. But the numbers are there.
Well, you can't negotiate higher numbers as a publisher or anything.
Not as a
Your
publisher,
ASCAP or
no,
anything
no,
like that.
no,
So
no.
all you're doing is dividing the other 50% of the pie, and you can make a deal with your record label for
Right.
more or less, but that's about it.
Yeah,
That's your only recourse.
absolutely. Speaking of the record business, coming off of Jerry Heller, I thought this was interesting. Not only did I notice one, but I noticed two pop stars going into the Guinness Book of World Records, which I thought was crazy because I'm sure in 6 months they'll both get dethroned by some other pop star.
Sure.
But the Weeknd, he was he has the most streamed album in 1 year with 60 million plays for the entire album. I think.
For the whole thing?
Yeah, people have.
Not just tracks on the song?
Yeah, no, the whole album streamed 60 million times.
Really?
Yeah, like that's ridiculous. Because it's usually one track. One track may like there's which wait a minute. Let me. There are artists that have like one song that has got to 1 billion plays, but it's one song. But when you have one whole album that has been streamed 60 million times, that is an awfully popular album.
I got one question about the Weeknd. Now, my nephew turned me on to him,
Yes.
and I was surprised at how much I liked him.
Mm-hmm.
Dude got a lot of talent. But when's he gonna grow up enough to change that wig, man? Because that's ugly. Just saying.
That's his.
The dude needs a new hairstyle. Seriously.
Yeah, I have
He's not an ugly man. I mean,
Yeah, I have never been a fan of dog ear dreads, which is basically what his are. They lock so much that they just become flaps. I've never been a fan of dog ear dreads, but
Thank you. I appreciate that.
But that's what he has, and right now that's his shtick. And I hope that he
Cuts it off.
Yes, I hope he does.
Well, that's the only way to get rid of it, isn't it?
Yeah, at this point, what he's allowed to happen, yeah, it's the only thing you can do is cut that off. Like, you can't let the roots grow, and no, you have to just shave that and then let it grow out.
He needs to take a year off.
Basically, if he's gonna cut his hair, yeah.
On the Beiber.
Oh yeah, and then the other Guinness book was Beiber. He got the record for most streamed track on Spotify in 1 week. And I have been looking through trying to find what that number was, but I didn't see what the number actually was. So, but I thought it was crazy that like in a week I saw 2 artists with Guinness Book stuff, and I thought.
Okay, I got a comment on Beiber too.
Yes.
Because I don't listen to Beiber at all, and I happened to catch a video of his the other day. And he's using this electronically enhanced voice.
Yes.
Are all of his songs electronically enhanced?
No.
No,
not at all.
no, not at all.
Most of them are not.
Okay, I was just kind of like, well,
I would
geez, you
get-
know, they can electronically, even though with my bad speaking here, electronically enhance my voice,
Right.
and I could probably sound good even with my bad accent.
I mean, I'll tell you, he probably sang the track probably 60 times, and they took each word and cut it up and made it the best. I mean, that happens all the
Yes,
time.
that happens
You
a
don't
lot.
walk in and knock out a song.
Yeah, yeah,
You
well,
get
The
studio
old
anymore.
school boys used to do it
Yeah,
all the
I
time.
was gonna say,
I'm
there-
just saying.
If it's
Yeah,
there is
Wow.
a handful of artists.
So here was something that was interesting, and I just remember.
Yeah.
We're talking about streaming, and congratulations on breaking the streaming record, yada yada. This was, prior to that, I think the most popular song of all time was Lady Gaga's Poker Face.
Yes.
It was the most streamed, was played more than 1 million times. According to the reports from Spotify, she got paid, and this is Spotify alone,
Spotify.
million streams on Spotify.
Yes.
She got paid $167
Which
for
is
that.
the problem
That's wrong.
with streaming? Yes.
He's got 8 titles in the Guinness Book of World Records for 2017.
Bieber?
Really?
Yes.
Well,
What?
now that everybody's streaming
It's
too,
most
these are
streamed
great.
track on Spotify in 1 week, and it was over 30 million times.
Okay.
Most streamed album on Spotify in 1 week, which was 205 million times worldwide.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Most simultaneous tracks on a U.S. singles chart.
Okay.
We had 17 tracks at one time.
Wow.
But see what's screwy about that?
Most simultaneous new entries in the Hot 100 by a solo artist. First act to occupy all top 3 positions simultaneously on UK single chart. Most followers on Twitter, male. 'Cause I think Katy Perry holds the female.
Yeah.
Most viewed music channel on YouTube for an individual. Most subscribers on YouTube for a musician, for a male musician.
Okay.
Makes me
What's
very,
wrong
very
with me?
worried for the younger generation.
Well,
Very, very,
just not
very
compares
worried.
apples
The
to
fact that I'm
oranges.
getting old, they're gonna be taking care of me.
when I don't have to pay, I literally pay $10 a month for Spotify
Mm-hmm.
and listen to it endlessly as much as I want to. It doesn't cost me a dime more than
A dime more,
$10.
right.
And you're trying to compare that against the Beatles or Elvis, who literally people had to go out and buy their records.
Exactly.
You know, I mean, I would put the Beatles records, and if they've been broken, they've been broken. But I think if they've been broken in an illegitimate way, where people aren't purchasing the track or doing that, they're listening to the track, and congratulations.
Yeah.
But you know, and that's all it takes to hold the number one.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's a way to,
Well, they've
because
just.
you know how they do like, oh, $1 million at this time is worth this much now, and
Sure.
I
Yeah.
wonder if there's a way to look at the numbers and say if they were alive today or if they were, you know, popular today, what it would be.
Yeah.
That would be fascinating.
But I think you'd have to go beyond that, and just
bad
not.
Ronnie's
It's not
not
even a revenue comparison to me. It would also honestly be, I don't have to do anything. Like, literally right now, I could just pull up that song and listen to it if I wanted to, and
Right.
do nothing.
Right.
Whereas if you were the Beatles or the Stones or James Brown or any of
Yeah,
those
you
guys,
had to.
You had to go get the single.
There was
go
an
get the
action
record.
required.
I mean,
Like, truly.
or that's hard-earned money back then.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, I think, you know, I think the interesting thing, and honestly, I think that, you know, I don't even know if I think pop music, but I really do believe, unfortunately, hip hop had something to do, a lot to do with it, to tell you the truth. Music in and of itself has become devalued over time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the commodity.
And I think that, you know, what used to be, you know, like demos that you used to still sell. You know, if you're a band, you know, I'm Johnny Hot Rapper, and I'm trying to make a name for myself. You know, 25 years ago, I would make a demo, and I would sell as many as I could, and I would pass out as many as I could.
You didn't see him drove around in his car selling CDs
out of his trunk, exactly. And that's, so now that same demo just gets uploaded online.
Sure.
And you know what promotion you need to do is to convince somebody at your favorite blog really just to post the fact that your stuff is out there. And it's just such a different time. I don't know, and I think about this often actually. I don't know if, you know, the Beatles, the Michael Jacksons, the Princes,
Right.
you know, I don't know if they could financially compete now. I mean, their level,
I think they could.
their level of talent was there.
Talent would always win.
Absolutely.
Talent always wins out, though.
Well, I agree, except to say, you know, there's only 2 or 3 albums that have even sold over 1 million copies in 2016.
Yeah.
Like, and so it just makes me, and like Adele, Adele, Drake, maybe Beyonce, Taylor Swift. Like there's such a small handful of artists that are really actually selling records.
Taylor Swift.
That it makes me wonder how well some of our favorite historical acts would do now.
Here's how I would measure, and this would be a perpetual debate because there's no way of proving it one way or the other. I would measure the cultural impact of the Beatles against the cultural impact of Justin Bieber. the cultural impact of the Beatles.
Now that is hilarious.
I mean, they literally changed a generation.
Oh yeah.
I mean, from everything from clothes to politics to everything.
And they weren't
Justin
together that
Bieber.
long.
No, I mean, well, they were together for a very long time, but not when they were popular. 64 to 70.
Yeah.
That was it.
That was
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And literally changed the world in that short of a span of time.
That's 6 years though.
No, they've been playing together since the 50s.
Yeah, but really they had
whatever.
6 years of
Read The Tipping
Beatle
Point by
fame.
Malcolm Gladwell. Like, it's amazing. They had like 10,000 hours. He always has a 10,000 hour tipping point.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
go back to all their Hamburg shows and all that. I just think it was the fame and the popularity that broke them up. But I think once you get that popular, same with Michael Jackson.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Michael
TV the
Jackson
other day about
broke
them.
because of popular culture.
They would come into these stadiums in an armored car, and they would just put this simple stage up there.
Oh, yeah.
And it was arena rock started off, but there was nothing but this stage and the Beatles.
They had shitty amps, and they would take the speakers for the stadium, like the baseball announcers would use, and put them in front of the amps.
Yes.
You couldn't hear jack shit. In fact, small historical fact, the only place they never sold out ever on any live concert in America, Kansas City.
That
It's
is
in one single spot.
That is an amazing. See, this is why out there podcast land we keep Chris on the podcast because he has historical.
And we like
It's
him.
unbelievable.
Well, we kind of like him.
We kind of like him. Kind of like him a little bit.
Yeah. All right, so we do have to move on because we're running low on time. Because we actually could keep talking about that for a long time.
That'd be a fun conversation at some point.
Yeah, actually, yes, it actually would be, and we may see that come back up in the podcast sooner than later. Because actually, I do think
Pretty fascinating.
yeah, I do think the conversation of musicians and how they would fare, their day till today, or vice versa.
Sure.
Like you take, some of our biggest, stars and put them in an environment when people were buying records. You take a Kanye West.
I was just about to say Kanye would be my example. If you were able to remove the cultural and racial divide,
Yeah.
and just assume that was
Have
a
no social
non-starter,
media.
and then put him in that day,
Yeah.
I still think he's insanely popular.
Yeah, no, I actually, Kanye is one of the probably 5 or 6 acts that I think, like back in the day, there was always this, you were either a huge Prince fan or a huge Michael fan, and they sold ridiculous amounts of records. I really think you put Michael and Prince and if you give the during the Michael and Prince era, you put Kanye in that era in like you say in a place where culturally rap is relevant.
Sure.
I'm gonna say that
You have a real competition. I really believe
I
that.
think he kills both of them because he's the best self-promoter I've ever seen in my life.
Ooh, good gravy. All right. Once again, we will definitely bring this back up in a forthcoming podcast because this is actually a really interesting conversation. Just really quick, last 2 things. So I'll start with the funny one first, because I'm sure we'll talk about the other one longer. Larry King is now working for Russian national television.
It's not Larry King, it's a wax statue.
What?
It's a wax statue. They are, with animation are able to make him move. Larry King actually died about 20 years ago. And they've got this robot of Larry King.
He's like the
And
biggest
he's cocktail, Miss Mugan Magnon, you need to watch now.
So I was like, because of course it comes up because Trump's doing an interview with Larry King, and he's saying a lot of he's doing the Trump thing, and he's thinking I'm doing his podcast. And
That's what he said after the fact.
Right. Well, I'm just saying what he said.
Sure.
He said, I thought I was doing his podcast. And it turns out that it was on not just Russian, television or Russian internet, it was Russian state-sponsored television. And I couldn't believe how you didn't know. Or that Larry King didn't tell you.
Yeah, you cannot run a worse campaign.
That was hilarious.
You can't blame Trump on that one.
Yeah, that was.
I'm sorry, you
that
can't
was
blame
hilarious.
Trump on that one.
I don't know, but I knew that. I know that was funny. I was just like, how do you not know you're about to be on Russian state-sponsored television?
Right.
That is hilarious. So anyway, I thought that was hilarious. The fact that Larry King is even working for Russian state-sponsored television at this point is hilarious to me. And last but not least, Wells Fargo.
Wow.
I was just like, that's not where I was going to originally end up, but that's the last of kind of the news topics that I had before, we talked about pneumonia and such things like that. But does anybody remember the number of accounts, the phony accounts that were set up?
No, they fired 5,300 people.
I mean,
They have millions of accounts set up on credit cards.
Just amazing.
Several different style accounts. It wasn't just one account. And was this brought on because of quotas? Yeah, you might be able to say that. Is it brought on because of people think they can get away with it?
Over
that's
2
probably
million.
more than likely.
2 million accounts?
Over 2 million.
Jeez.
Yeah, and
Phony account.
if any one of us in a business had done something as fraudulent as this,
Man.
we'd be heading to Leavenworth. We'd be having some new jumpsuits made for us with some nice sandals, so we didn't have to tie our shoes no more.
But all that happened to those 5,300 people.
Nothing will happen to these people, and this is the whole problem. This is the whole problem with our government and their politics and who's buying who, and that's what it boils down to.
Yeah.
It's who's paying who. And just don't forget, I'm sure Trump is taking, Hillary's certainly taking a lot of that money. How's she going to reconcile with that? This is what it boils down to. People are paid off in government. Government and big business are two of the same. They are synchronicity in each other. And that's why we the people have a major problem nowadays. Because we don't have a say in it anymore. And they get scot-free off no matter what they do. They get slapped on the hand. They pay a big fine. What does it matter? Heck, they got billions and billions and billions of dollars and they get a $186 million fine. Really? That's a drop in the bucket.
I remember when they started saying that by all legal definitions, corporations are people. And I remember thinking to myself, well, that's the worst idea I've ever heard. Like, that a corporation is a person. So because, by definition, a corporation by dictionary definition, is closer to the dictionary definition of a psychopath than it is of a person. You know, it will do whatever it takes in any circumstance to survive, even harming itself to survive. And I was just like, I don't want that defined as a person. But I knew the moment legally it was defined as a person, and your tax ID number was basically a social security number.
And they ask for it that way when you fill out certain things.
Exactly.
Because I do that. Because are you a corporation or are you an LLC?
Corporation.
You an S subchapter S?
correct.
So am I. All right.
Yeah.
So we're both subchapter S's.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right. During that recession,
Yeah.
hold a second mortgage on my house. I went 3 years without a paycheck
Mm-hmm.
because I was going to make sure that corporation survived,
Yeah.
because that corporation pays me.
Well, wait, so
It's my job.
we would say the same thing. So this is where I do take a little bit of umbrage with the way that this was presented.
Okay.
I would not do something that I knew was flat ass illegal to try to make my company survive. I would do everything humanly in my power to make sure that
Bingo.
my people got paid as long as I could, that I was doing the best jobs, I was cutting costs. If I had
Exactly
to cut
what I
jobs, it
do.
would hurt me, but I would do that, and I've been in that situation before. The reason we're a corporation is because if you look at the way the tax law is set up, you're allowed to draw a salary on which you pay FICA and Medicare
Right.
as an employee of the company, and then beyond that, you don't pay that. So you save yourself 6% in taxes on anything above what you would earn, whereas if you decided to be an LLC, you pay taxes, FICA and Medicare, on everything that you make. You get screwed by the tax system. So this is why a lot of people choose to be a subchapter S and go for it as a corporation like that. In this case, I will tell you, and I do not, I'd be interested to see how high it went up in the company, but my general experience with stuff like this is that there's pressure that comes in from on high that says, listen, we have to increase our sales, we have to report quarterly.
Right.
But it's at a very low level that people are trying to get ahead and make a name for themselves and set up stuff. I had Northwestern Mutual set up 5 false life account policies in my name.
Wow.
And I had 2 legitimate ones when I went with them.
Right.
But the guy just wanted to be a big baller. You know, so you sign up these other 5 in my name that weren't legitimate policies. And that's at the lowest level.
Wow.
Now, if you're sitting there, the CEO of Northwestern Mutual, I'm fairly certain you had no idea that some asshole in Kansas City did that.
Right.
But there is a certain amount of pressure to always turn in corporate earnings if you're a publicly traded company.
Absolutely.
And so, you know, it's a
I mean, and don't get me wrong, I don't hate corporations. As a matter of fact, at a certain point, I know that the Good Times and Good People Company will be a corporation,
Sure.
and that's perfectly okay. The problem comes in, for me, when you know, we all have some scruples and morals sitting at this table, but there are those corporations that will set up 2 million phony accounts and ultimately have to fire over 5,000 people for doing some, and the reason you'll do it, one, is because you are getting these pressures from on high to make these things happen, but the penalty, you know, I was in a conversation with somebody, and we were getting back to Justin Bieber. They were like, oh, he needs to clean his act up, he's doing all this crazy stuff, and he's in the streets in this chrome car doing donuts. And I said, Sue, let me ask you a question. You're 20. You got $100 million. $100 million. How much is the ticket for doing donuts in the street?
Sure, do nothing.
A drop.
A drop.
A pinhead, not even a drop.
Right.
Pinhead.
And that,
But you're not including the full amount of the financial recourse that's going to happen here. You know as well as I do there'll be a class action lawsuit, and we say everybody
There
got
already is
defrauded. they're going to win billions of dollars, so that will absolutely affect the bottom line, and it's going to happen. So there will be some financial punishment.
$185 million in fines and $5 million to refund customers.
Now, that's only with the
No.
company volunteer.
Then
That's not
there's
the class
$100
action
million
lawsuit.
will go towards the CFPB's civil penalty, $35 million to the Office of the Controller of Currency, and $50 million will be paid to the city and county of Los Angeles.
Still doesn't. That's not a
But
class
that
action
wasn't- that
lawsuit.
wasn't a
Still
lawsuit.
doesn't get them out of the
That was-
class
They
action lawsuit.
said that they refused. Where'd it go?
Those people cannot take part. If you take that money, you can't take part in the class action lawsuit.
The CFPB declined to comment on when the investigation began and what sparked it, citing agency policy. But they interviewed a guy who called Wells Fargo a year ago, and because he had noticed an account
Sure.
Yep.
in his name.
But they're going to get killed.
Real quick,
Yeah.
I have a friend of mine, not call him a friend, because we get together enough when he comes into town. That used to be one of the top 15 paid CEOs here in town. Okay, and he negotiated a deal, and this may give away with a Chinese company, to bring his company forward. And I asked him one time, I said, one thing I don't understand is that I know sometimes in business I need to accelerate. I know sometimes in business I need to retract. I said, how come in the corporate world, retract is a hugely bad word, or staying stable and even is a hugely bad word? He says, shareholders.
Exactly.
Exactly.
You
That's
have
exactly
to always,
it.
and it was
You
something
have
for
to
me-
answer to the
something for
street.
me I never really thought about.
Quarterly
The
earnings.
shareholders demand that you make X amount of profit every single year, and you go forward. And if you don't make that, your ass is grass.
It's not every year. It's every 3 months, and it's
Yeah.
You probably know what I'm talking
It's
about.
brutal. I think I do.
And he's a good dude.
I would agree. I
But,
would agree.
you know, and he will tell you exactly how it is. He's a no bullshit
It's a
guy.
brutal game.
And that's why he is no longer there, because he couldn't
Yeah.
handle the deal with the people that he made.
The publicly traded stuff is, the way that the publicly traded stock market is set up is unhealthy for long-term business.
Well, and that's why you have that's how you get layoffs in companies.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember thinking this.
I mean, that's not the only way, but you
I
know
will
what I
say
mean.
this, I would say, I find there to be a difference between a Wells Fargo and like an Enron, for example. Whereas I think the very top people at Enron not only knew about it, but were
Yeah.
doing it.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
encouraging
yeah.
it. Whereas I could see the way Wells Fargo is set up with branches everywhere and doing all that kind of stuff, that's really 5,000 some odd people. That's that drop in the bucket to Wells Fargo, setting up fake accounts. That doesn't surprise me all that much, to be perfectly honest.
You know?
And I think you could get away with it as a small-time individual trying to work your way up through your local branch to maybe
Right.
a district manager and blah, blah, blah.
And there was a lot of that.
Yeah, and I think you can get away with it for a while. Eventually, the CFO is going to catch on and go, where the hell is this money?
Money.
But it's
Enron
like-
purposely, at the very top levels, designed a plan to trade money back and forth between their own companies to make it look like they were gaining revenue. That's a sophisticated plan.
Yeah.
And they deserve to go to jail and be put under.
Yeah,
So
and
I don't know all the
I
circumstances
definitely
of this.
agree that there is a massive difference between an Enron and what happened with
But
Wells Fargo.
5,300 employees, there's no way that didn't go up fairly high. I mean, you don't have 5,300 people in one consolidated area.
What I'm saying is that I think that there are a lot of people doing it to 100 people in all their different branches, and you always get those a-holes. And I bet they probably did not have the proper policing in place to make sure that that was not happening, which I would probably fault the company for, and they certainly deserve fault for that. I'm going to say I think you could get away with it the way they were structured for a long time.
Right.
And maybe they should have been tighter on their oversight.
Yeah.
But I do not believe in this particular case that it was coming from the highest level to start doing fraudulent accounts and do all that to make it look like we have more money coming in. I think individuals get paid on bonuses and commissions in those companies.
Right.
And so they're signing people up right and left
Yeah.
without them knowing about it.
Yeah, I mean, I
So
think
not all of it, some of it was opening like a second bank account
Mm-hmm.
and moving money from the original account to the new account. So
Back and
people
forth.
people were getting hit with overdraft fees and stuff like that, and
Yep.
they were like,
Yeah.
what's going on? And on another whole side of it, people were opening credit card accounts
Yes.
for people. So there's two different things going on.
Oh, wow.
There's the
Okay.
moving money into another account, and then the whole credit card.
Right, right.
From
Opening
what I
credit
understood, they
cards.
were shifting money constantly back and forth. 'Cause
They
what
said
they
that-
would do is then set up the credit card to handle what were a lot of the overdraft fees, and you might not even ever see that statement ever.
Ever.
Because you can set that up as the backup to cover overdrafts.
Yes.
Gotcha.
And so always have sworn to God, if I was ever, God forbid, elected to any public office where I could have this authority, the very first thing I would do is any company, like a bank, that charges you $35 every time they screw up, they need to give you $35 every time they screw up. That's a fair contract. Because
I
Bank
would
of
like to
America
told
screws
my
up
old
to me all
bank
the
that,
time.
you know.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, because they was $36 every time I screwed
Oh,
up,
yeah.
and they screwed up a bunch of times. Did I get any money back? Oh, hell
Never.
no.
What they do is
That's
they'll
why
go,
I'm with the new
oh,
bank.
my bad. Like Bank of America does this
They'll
all the
just
time, 'cause
reverse
we have
the
multiple
fees.
accounts, but
Yeah.
really sorry, here's your money back. I'm no, bullshit. You owe me.
Right, now you owe me.
$36 now because you
Right.
screwed up.
Right,
So,
exactly.
that's a fair contract.
Yeah, I fully agree.
I agree with that.
Yeah, because we
Well,
are
you
both.
know, I don't know who you bank through, but we
Bank of
bank.
America.
Yeah, so it was, yeah,
you
so
know,
we,
they had that whole thing where they were they were getting overdraft fees because they're still doing it. They got in trouble for it, but they still freaking do it.
They still to this day will, when I transfer money, it takes 2 days to post. But when I put the money in, it goes in immediately.
Right.
It's such a nonsense kind of a thing. So if I have to switch money between the accounts, like,
Remember,
it's gonna take a couple days to post.
No,
Yeah.
well, and
my wife worked
we
for a bank
have
for a long time.
we have
I
a
know lot of
problem
inside
with.
stuff.
Well,
My
not we.
grandfather owned a bank.
What
Yeah,
annoys
we
me
both know
is
inside stuff.
Yeah.
you should be settling my account the way I'm spending the money, not the largest to the smallest items.
Which is the problem with her bank.
That's what Bank of America does, and that's what they got in trouble for.
Yep.
And they're
I won't
still
say
doing it
her
now.
bank, But that's exactly, they were after big dogs, I was little dog, and they beat the crap out of little dog and gave big dog the break.
Yep.
yeah,
Every time.
every time.
Simple as that.
Well, I think we have hit all the topics we can hit for today. I was going to talk a little bit about pneumonia, but we actually got a little more involved in the news of the day than I thought we would. And that's quite all right, because that is actually what we kind of do around here.
What I would like to say about pneumonia is it's damn good to see you up and walking around.
Well, thank you,
And
sir.
missed
Thank
you
you.
for the last couple of weeks, but
Yeah,
I'm really
thanks, sir.
surprised they didn't put him in the hospital.
I want to give
He
a
was
quick
pretty
shout
bad.
out to one of our panel members that hasn't been able to make it because he's been busy. Rappin' Roy.
Rapping Roy.
Rappin' Roy sent me an email today and sent me about all what his program was. And you look at what Rappin' Roy does, and it's wow.
Oh, yeah.
It's wow. And
It
he's
is.
trying to, he's looking for some sponsors to sponsor some of the schools.
Okay.
And so I'm going to work on getting a coalition
Oh,
of businesses
nice.
together
Nice.
I missed it.
and do something like that. Because
Nice.
Rappin' Roy's a man
We need to have
that's out
him
there
perform
making.
for us sometime.
Yeah, I'm going to say, I definitely would like to see.
Rappin' Roy makes a difference in the world. He's a man that goes out and makes a difference in the world.
I would definitely like to see.
And anybody
this.
that does that deserves a huge shout out.
Yeah.
That's true.
I'd say, yeah, Roy and the H3, and of course that is healthy,
And his
healthy
partner,
hip hop.
and his
Yeah,
partner.
yeah, him and his partner.
they're both great guys.
And with their organization, Healthy Hip Hop, is who we're talking about. So please Google Healthy Hip Hop H3 and see what they're doing out here. It's
It'll blow you away.
actually pretty exciting. With that said, I am going to, of course, end today's podcast in the way I end all podcasts, and that is with the toast that started it all for me. But before I give you the toast, I saw this quote in And it got me to thinking about politics and this whole campaign season and really kind of all campaign seasons. And the quote was, said, "You campaign in poetry, but you govern in prose." And I just thought that, you know, for everybody who's like, oh, you know, politicians are always lying or untruthful, or, you know, I think that may be a better definition of what's actually happening. You know, I think you do have to campaign in poetry. You know, you have to attempt to grab the hearts and minds, but you can't govern that way. You know, you govern in prose. It's pretty straightforward, and it's kind of staccato, and it's not always going to rhyme. But if you're lucky, you get some things done.
Yep.
And with that said, to good times with good people.